Welcome back to our YouTube channel. This is Candid Conversations with Caroline and Chris. We're quite excited to have you here again watching us for our new episode. We're quite excited about the feedback we got from the last one about masculinity and vulnerability. If you haven't checked it out, please just check the link in bio. You'll be able to see that amazing video that we spoke about, really intimate stuff. And we want to just break it down today with more context on something similar, but more on, relationships and how to actually deal with relationships when it ends. So basically a breakup.
Yeah, and not limiting it to, masculinity. It's now across the board.
Across the board. So regardless of whatever gender or approach that you want to take, we just want to discuss it openly.
Yeah.
How are you doing though?
I'm doing great. How
Doing
are you
fantastic.
doing today?
Looking fantastic with the red, killing it over here. And at the same time, we want to consider a few things, by the way. Definitely that conversation on how it should be dealt with. What are some of the positive and negative aspects that come with breakups? And at the same time, and considering like what are some of those best practices that we can do to help us, really cope and deal with, a breakup.
Take care of ourselves. Okay, so how do we navigate?
Yeah. So me, I'm here to learn. I want to learn from you. I want to definitely get your perspective on the mind and the psychology behind it. But when we start defining, of course, it's good to always define. Is there something as a good breakup and a bad breakup?
As we get further, because I want us to look at it from a point of grief and loss, we'll realize that a loss is a loss. You might experience a loss that will be eventually good for you, or maybe say you're coming out of a dysfunctional relationship, which, when you look at it from the cover of the book, it looks like this is good for you, but there are feelings involved, there is time invested, there are promises, there are a lot of things that are involved. So I would not say there's a good or a bad breakup. A breakup is a breakup and it's a loss. So chances are it's something that someone will experience pain and loss. Yeah.
So regardless of whatever approach you want to take, it is a loss. There is pain involved.
Yes, even if it's 5%, it's still pain. So maybe after you've healed, that's when you can look back and say, that breakup, it was important, it's good that it went that way. But I can't imagine someone being in the middle of a breakup and you're like, it's good for you. It's quite insensitive.
Quite insensitive.
Yeah,
invalidating the other person's feelings.
Yeah, and lived experiences. Yeah. So I would not say
I think at that point, we're viewing it as a bad breakup because of how you're dealing with it.
Yeah, the consequences.
But not necessarily the state of the breakup in itself.
Yeah.
So I think maybe we can start from that perspective. Before even going to the correct stages of grief, what would you say are these positive and negative aspects? And then maybe I can also speak on what I know.
Some positive aspects of it would be you get to connect with yourself more, I would assume. Say you are invested in it heavily, you spend most of your time maybe with this person and you didn't have time for your own activities, or there were time for activities but it was limited, so you can maybe do more, crochet, hike, there are a lot of things that you can, so you get to know yourself better, because at the end of the day we are our own home, so we come back, we always come back to ourselves. So that's one big positive thing that I would say, and it covers a lot of things under it. So I would say that.
Can you be addicted to someone?
Can you be addicted to someone? Are we addicted to people, or are we addicted to the feeling that they invoke in us?
That's the one. The feeling that this person made me feel.
The memory.
The goodness, the joy, the happiness. Part of it is also like a selfish kind of look or approach, if you think about it. That
How so?
even in a breakup perspective, I'm still thinking about myself, and part of that is also quite interesting to think about, that when we go into that breakup conversation, we tend to villainize our partners to validate,
of course, our pain. to validate our pain.
Yeah.
Our pain. Yeah. We are human beings, and we are selfish in nature. Even when you're born, the id is the part of us that's, it has the aggressiveness, the love, the combination of it. And when you look at, even when a baby is born, it's me. That's what the id is about. It's me. It's selfish.
Yes.
That ni kama vile simu inakujaga ikiwa pre-programmed. Kuna kitu imekuja ikiwa already na
the settings,
ndani, default.
Yes,
so that's default. But now, as we grow up, as we are socialized, as we learn other things, now we realize we have to accommodate other people. It's not only about us.
Yes.
Even when a child is growing, utaona atafika place, even when they're hungry, they can ngoja kidogo mama, ngoja kidogo baba, wait, wacha nioge, then I give you that fruit. So we learn that it's not only about us, but the innate human nature is very selfish. So when we go to when we are going through pain, especially a lot of pain that we don't know how to navigate, we go back to default self-preservation,
and we blame.
So we become very selfish.
Wow. We tend to think of the other person's flaws more than what we also caused in that specific time, and because it's a two-way thing.
Equal players.
Right? There's no one who made you do anything that you didn't want to do.
No. Unless it was in a case of maybe extreme abuse, because we have situations of abuse where there's financial abuse, emotional abuse, that puts you in a state where you know that if I don't do this, the repercussions are too heavy for me.
Yeah.
So in that situation, you'd say that I didn't have a choice. But then again, when you look at it, we always have a choice.
We do.
Yeah. But I'm saying that just to be empathetic and sensitive to someone who has been in a situation where they've been pushed in a corner.
Okay.
Yeah.
So as we navigate through that conversation on sort of the toxic approaches when it comes to breakup, we've spoken about one thing, which is, first of all, invalidation of emotions. I think that for me was quite interesting to hear about, when someone says the breakup is good because of the state that the wait has ended, right?
You're like, that chick was not even good.
Was not good for me.
Was not good for you.
Yeah.
And such
I didn't even like her. She was making you to be this other person.
We never saw you around.
We never saw you. You were always so busy. Alikukalia kwanza, bro. You always fall in love so fast. And that's, I know.
Yeah, I know, in the middle of pain. So
people instead of telling you, yo, by the way,
or not telling you anything and sitting
and listening, and just being there.
Yeah.
Interesting. Another one that we also talk about, of course, is rebounds. Getting someone else to try to get the same feeling. What do you think about that one?
I think that we should give ourselves time. There's no stimulated amount of time. I don't know if you've ever heard people say that you need half the time that you spent with this person. So if you're with this person for 2 years, you need a year. But I don't believe in that, because people heal differently.
Yeah.
And some may take longer. The relationship might have been maybe 6 months, but it did a number, and you stayed 3 years without dating.
Yeah.
So I believe that it's important to take some time, and this time is to reflect, and the reflection or rather takes you to that place where you're saying, we don't take responsibility. It's about what these people did to me. And then you realize, three relationships down, you're perpetrating the same cycle.
Yes.
You might not even be the problem per se, but you're attracting the same, maybe verbally abusive people. So you have to sit down and evaluate and assess yourself and say, what is it about me?
I keep choosing this kind of people.
Okay? Yeah, why am I okay with being in the supermarket and somebody telling me, why are you picking that? Are you an idiot? Like,
yes.
Why am I okay with being, insulted?
Yes.
And probably you realize this is something you learned by observation, modeling. That's something that used to happen at home. So that's why we take time to do that.
Yes.
We just take time to, why was I okay with that? Or why was I okay with doing this to this human being? Yet it hurt me and hurt them as well. So we take time to assess ourselves so that we don't go forward with, carrying these behaviors. Because if you go on, if you move on immediately, you're going to perpetrate the same cycles.
Wow.
So as opposed to having one damaged the damage is in quote unquote, because I don't believe people can be fixed.
Yes.
Because they're not radios or
yes. It's not something you can.
Yeah, so it's quote unquote, yeah.
Yes.
So instead of having one damaged person, we'll have two damaged people, and then the ripple effect.
The cycle
then
continues.
So after 3 years, how many people would we need to heal from there? So I decide to end the cycle by taking some type of, it doesn't have to be long, could be 2 months, 3 months, a year, whatever is sufficient for you, because people process things very differently. So that's my response in regard to rebounds.
Because that's typical. Even linking it to the original idea of missing that feeling, you know, getting that good morning text and feeling loved and feeling special and cared for is something that people crave, because part of it also is that conversation of external validation and needing your anchor not being yourself but your partner.
External people.
Yes.
Which is a problem.
Which is also a problem in itself.
Because it means you're not showing up independently, you're showing up codependently. But that's a whole topic that we need to talk about.
Yes, but we did speak about that. Relationship attachment styles. I believe it was 4 episodes before this one.
Yeah.
And we also did speak about childhood traumas and how they influence our relationships in future, how we view and how we show up. So that content is out there, and if you haven't watched it, you should definitely check it out. Okay, so now going into the main issue, which is how do we navigate.
Now that we know how we behave.
Ideally, right? And we haven't even gotten deeper into that because there are so many other ways. There are people who get violent. There are people who self-destruct, self-harm. You know, very drug and substance abuse. There are situations where we get to people getting into inflicting physical pain on themselves, right? Or even insinuating to the point where they start being more aggressive, or maybe they expose themselves, became vulnerable, like the way we spoke on our last episode, but then they did actually get susceptible to pain and they got hurt, and now they've locked themselves even deeper.
There's a whole wall.
Yes.
A Great Wall of China.
Of course, greater than the Great Wall of China, all around your heart. And I think most of the guys usually experience that even more. So, based on that conversation, we want to ask ourselves, how do we positively, in this case, or how do we deal with grief? You said a breakup is like grief.
It is.
It's a deeper conversation as opposed to how most people speak about it.
Yeah. Because people will say things like, but it's not like you were married.
Yeah, it was just a boyfriend. Just a girlfriend. You guys don't have kids.
You know, those...
Or they invalidate it by saying, oh, mine was a 6-year marriage. Yours was just the other day, you know, something like that. And invalidate
but that's really unfair, because that's why I said there's someone who's been not even in a relationship, in a situationship.
Yeah. For
2 months. But it has costed them a year to just try and process it.
And heal.
Yeah, so I think these are statements that it's important to add. You know the way they say that if you don't have something nice to say, just don't say anything.
Yeah.
So going into these stages of grief, we have 5, but some context will give 7, but they are very similar, so I'll just fit them in between. So the stages of grief, we have denial, anger, bargaining, depression, and now finally acceptance. So between denial and anger, we have pain. So it's very similar. That's why I prefer just using the 5. Because when you explain it, they're there, and then towards the end, between the last 2 stages, now we have, it's like you're coming. Coming to birth, you're coming.
Yes.
So we use, when you're talking about grief, we use like an image, like a horseshoe image, because that's how it's
like a slump and then goes back up.
Yeah, it goes like that, yeah. So, and something that is important to understand is that grief is not linear. And when you talk about grief and loss, or loss and grief, any form, we assume that, loss is only in death, physical death.
Yes.
But no. Loss of pets, loss of property, loss of a job.
Things that connected to us emotionally.
Yes, loss of a friendship.
Yes.
Loss of all those things.
There was something that was going on, a win-win situation, and we lost it.
Yeah.
And we need to like figure out how to properly deal with it.
Yeah. So I need it's something that I think we need to have more conversations around. That when you talk about loss and grief, it's not only limited to death.
Yes.
That's
the one that we give seriousness to.
Yeah. So because we have several types of grief, and there's one specific one that I think we experience a lot. It's called disenfranchised grief. Okay. It's the kind of grief that it's like you're not allowed, or society does not allow. Yes. Like, you know, like those mom dogs, cat parents.
Yes,
they're not allowed to. You're like, it's a cat. What do you mean? So
how can you? And it was part of their family. They feel like
exactly. It was part of their life. So even when you're talking about breakups, you're going to look at it
holistically.
Exactly how you'd look at it in any form of loss.
Yes.
So denial. This is where you're like, no, and you're there. My text. Blogger. I can't believe it. I can't. Yeah. You know who I mean.
We know those ones. We've done those ones, by the way. User 345 wants to follow you.
All of a sudden, after you've been blocked. What? After you've been blocked and you're wondering.
Why is user 456? Why are you following me like this on Instagram, on Facebook?
After blocking you 3 minutes ago.
Exactly.
So that's that stage. It's the first stage. Just like in the case of death, when somebody experiences an ambio, someone has passed, and they're like, no, I was with them yesterday, or I talked to them an hour ago. They can't be dead. So we experience that even when you're like, no, we cannot break up. No, I'm sure you need a break. I'm sure it's not a break.
You don't need a break from me.
Yeah.
You just need a break.
Yeah.
I'll give you some time. How long do you need? Oh my God.
Yeah.
That's so sad.
Yeah.
Oh my God.
Denial. So
yes.
Denial. So we go to now the pain that you experience there. The one I was saying that it's fit in between.
Yes.
Then we go to anger. Now the anger, that is where that song, it's an 80 or 90 song, like a burst the windows of his car. That's where people do
all kinds of crazy things
because you're angry.
Where when you pull up to his house with the radio, and then you start singing all kinds of songs.
Yeah, so at this stage, and that's when, if maybe a guy finds the girl they've broken up with anyone in town, could be even a cousin, like a real cousin, who would even beat her up.
You start
just the
coming
anger.
up with stories.
Yeah, the anger, it's still a stage of, and that's when you feel like after everything I've done, and you'll find this stage also has a lot of feelings of betrayal. All those promises, what do you mean?
We're going to do these things, build a life together.
All those things, yeah?
How dare you leave after all that?
So the feelings of betrayal also come there. So after anger, we go to bargaining. Something I need the viewers to understand is that grief is not linear.
Yes.
So you might oscillate until you process.
You might stay on one stage back and forth
until you process it as you're supposed to. So that means you have to be very in touch with yourself. So we go to bargaining. So bargaining is, maybe he was not good for me.
I didn't like that nose. Those 2 ears, they're pointing so much.
Yeah, so could have come from an elf family.
Yeah.
So that's why you said. So that's why you're like, hata mimi kwanza mtu wa gym.
It can be toxic. It can be toxic.
So bargaining, but you're a bit safe. You're not so angry.
Yes.
You're not in denial. So you're trying to just.
You're trying to be cool about it.
Yeah.
You're trying to really get to a point of understanding.
Yeah. So,
and openness.
Yeah. So let me use an example of death. This is where people start saying, maybe angekuwa msick zaidi akuwe bedridden.
Yeah.
In a case of death, I feel like that's something.
Maybe they were also in pain.
Yeah, they were in so much pain, and it was fit. So that's what you're bargaining. So after bargaining, you go into depression. Yeah. So you remember our horseshoe?
Yes.
Satuko hapa.
The bottom of the
pit.
The
bottom of the pit. So you remember when you were talking about those toxic things that self-harm, all those things that you were talking about. Mostly they'll come here. I'm not saying they cannot come here.
Yes.
But mostly they come here. So you enter the depressive stage. So the depressive stage has the characteristics of now a depressed person. You're not opening your curtains. You're isolating, not going out anymore. You have no energy to do anything. No interest in things that you formerly enjoyed. Or we have people who actually now become so hyper. They are all over the place, so that they've masked and hide.
Yes.
So the depression here, hakuna depression different.
Yes.
Nini.
It's just the weight has come out.
Yeah.
Okay.
So once we navigate here, we start at least now coming to. Remember,
You're going up now.
Yeah, we are going up. So as we are going up, things look, shiny, gloom. Now the sun is now shining.
It's shining.
It's not as
the light
gloom.
at the end of the tunnel.
Yeah, it's not as gloom as it was.
Yeah.
So we are there. So the flowers in your compound that looked horrible, they all of a sudden they were yellow.
They were bright.
They were purple. They look beautiful. So we are getting to that place. So this is how we navigate it.
Wow.
So it's very important to understand this, because you'll be like, why does this heartbreak feel like this?
It feels like it's forever.
Yeah, what does it feel like? Death? It's death of something. There's a version of yourself that was there that you may not be able to experience ever again.
Deep.
So that's the problem. That's the problem when you try to carry, without navigating these stages, and you try and carry it to another relationship. So you're bringing a version of yourself that was someone totally different to this other relationship. You see why
it won't work.
So that's why it's easy to perpetuate the cycle of an unhealthy cycle. Wow. So it's very important. It's painful. It's not easy, but it's very important to go through this stage.
Wow.
All these stages. And grief is not linear, so it doesn't look
like that. We try to give a description of it, but at the same time,
some days are better than others.
It might not go as the way it might seem to be. So you might just end up going back to the basics again and again, and in a constant loop of trying and trying
until you navigate what you're supposed to navigate. It doesn't go away. You think maybe if I do this, or if I meet someone else, it's gonna go away. No, you're just gonna bury it deep, and eventually it will come up as
an issue.
Yeah, it will come up one or the other.
Wow.
Plus, remember, we are human beings, and our bodies keep the score, so it comes out as psychosomatic conditions. So
wow,
you
even start getting sick.
Yes,
you have that
physical manifestation of psychological pain
in the body.
Yes, and back pains, headaches, constant headaches. Gastrointestinal problems. So
some of us are sick because of breakups. That's crazy.
Tell us.
Oh, my goodness. A story for another day. A story for another day.
Tell us if you need help. We are here for you.
Yeah. We do need help. So, the other last final point as we finish, of course, is those best practices. Because you said it's not linear. Yeah. It's something that you go back. You could be at the depressive state, and then go back to bargaining, and then you get angry, and then you go again and start just denying from the beginning again, and just start saying, you know what?
You become a blogger, unarudi pale kwa inbox and voice notes. Ukitype, you go back there. It's
true. It's true.
So some things that we can do, something that I insist on in whatever we are experiencing in our lives. Be kind to yourself. People might be, you say like what we said about people invalidating you, they'll do that, but be the last person to do that.
Yeah.
So be kind to yourself, and then when you're maybe sharing with people, sometimes you might share with someone who has good intentions, but they don't have the context. What do I mean? This person we met when I was almost taking a job kwenda abroad.
Yes.
But we decided, because mapenzi.
Ni tamu kuliko pesa. That's so dumb. Continue. Continue.
So I decided to stay. So by the time we were meeting, we were already 2 years in the relationship. You do not have a context. Unatupata the last year.
Yes.
And then the last year is really bad. We are fighting a lot. We've broken up a bit.
Severally.
So this is what you know.
Yeah.
So
but
what
you
happened?
haven't seen
so
before.
I'm confiding in you, but what context do you have? So what are the chances of you being empathetic with me and just understanding and getting into a space where you can, and even showing that level of it's a bit difficult, right?
It is.
So it's important it's okay for you to talk about it, vent as much as you can. But also it's very important for you to be able to check, because some people may not have the context, so they may not show up for you, they may not support you to the level that you require at that moment in time. I've mentioned vent as much as possible. Don't die with it.
Of course, and then to the right people, speak to the right people.
Of course. Take care of yourself. Whatever self-care means to
for you. Yes.
Do that if it's.
But not drugs, of course. Definitely not drugs.
Let me clarify. I mean like working out, eating well.
Positive.
Yes,
Positive.
you know,
Yes,
picnics, connecting
yes.
with nature, swimming. Let me clarify that. I do not want to be misquoted.
It could mean anything.
I do
but
not
but I
want
like
to
that.
shock.
I like that you've spoken about some of these aspects. But what I like the most about it is, regardless of how long it takes, you have to go through it. You can't ignore it.
You can't run away from it. And it will persist.
And it's deep when you think about how eventually, if you don't handle such a challenge, it festers, it boils. And you think you've moved on past it, but at the end of the day, it's just like grief.
And you can imagine,
That's
it's
deep.
not just like it is.
It is
actually
grief. It is grief.
And
yes.
you can imagine how unfair it is to even the person that you meet next if you don't process this. What are you bringing into this? We all have baggage. You may not come in 100%, but what are you bringing? So I'm dealing with you. You're not dealing with me. You're dealing with a totally different woman. You're not seeing me because of the things that you've not processed. So it's also unfair when you look at it that way.
Yes.
So something else that's very important in the best practices is there's no nice way of saying this. Toa huyo mtu kwa pedestal.
Yes.
Mshukishe kutoka kwa pedestal.
Akuje chini.
Yes, because once you see them as
they don't have that kind of control in your life
anymore.
as much
you
as
have to take your power back.
Yes.
And it doesn't matter if you are the one who maybe made the breakup to, you facilitated the breakup, because there's always that one person.
Yes, for sure.
You have to
just let it go.
View them as a human being so that you're able to process it. Because if they're on the pedestal, you may not be able to process some things.
Yeah.
So you need to pedestal. What else have I not mentioned? I think those are the key highlights that I would like, the viewers to take away.
That's amazing.
Yeah.
That's amazing. All right. Thank you so much, Caroline. As always, very insightful information based on all your amazing history on learning the mind and psychology. I'm always learning so much from you. And I hope the viewers are also learning, because for the first time, we now really understand the seriousness of how a breakup should be taken, and at the same time, how we should properly deal with it. So any final thoughts before we finish?
As much as we make fun of it, and I'm sure we have done it, to my post-pale memes about breakups, we made fun of it.
Yes.
But if somebody's experiencing that and they come to you, extend empathy, extend kindness, and if you don't know what to do for them, if you don't have the right words they're not right words, but the right words to say, ask, how can I show up for you?
How can I be there?
How would you want me to show up for you?
Absolutely.
Yeah.
Amazing. All right. Thank you so much. Like, comment, share, subscribe. What are your thoughts? How did you view relationship breakups before this? Anything that you've learned? Give us feedback, and anything you also want to talk about. We're here. We want to get your insights, and then we can be able to keep sharing on our next episodes.
Yeah.
So thank you very much. See you on the next one.
Bye.